Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I'll be analyzing the case of Leilani Simon. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Leilani Marie Simon was born in November 1999 and lived in the state of Georgia. Throughout her life, she was very active romantically. She had a son named Zane with a man named Cody, a son named Quentin with a man named Henry, and a daughter named Sky with a man named Daniel. So all three of her children had different fathers. Leilani and her three children lived in a 2,700 square foot, three-bedroom house on Buckhalter Road in Savannah, Georgia. Also living in the house were her grandmother, Billie Jo Betterton, her brother Paul, and her boyfriend Daniel, who again is the father of Leilani's daughter Sky. Leilani and Daniel used drugs, and the couple had a tumultuous relationship. At some point, Billie Jo filed for custody of Zane and Quentin. Leilani was ordered to pay $150 a month in child support. On September 7, 2022, the police responded to an alleged domestic dispute at the house on Buckhalter Road. Leilani said that she and her mother had a physical confrontation over clothes in the washing machine. The next day, Billie Jo made a filing in the county court to evict her daughter and Daniel. She was not interested in their money. Rather, Billie Jo just wanted them gone. She claimed that no one was living in peace in the house and the couple had damaged property. Despite Billie Jo's efforts, Leilani and Daniel continued to live in the house. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On October 5, 2022, at 9:39 a.m., Leilani called 911 and reported that her 20-month-old son, Quentin, was missing from his playpen. She stated that she woke up and discovered that the front door was unlocked. She believed that someone had entered her house and kidnapped Quentin when she was sleeping. During the same time, her brother Paul and her boyfriend Daniel were also asleep in the house. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. On October 4, 2022, the day before Quentin was reported missing, Leilani was in pain from having her wisdom teeth removed. She used cocaine, Percocet, and marijuana late on October 4 and/or early on October 5. There was a security system in the house on Buckhalter Road. At 1:02 a.m. on October 5, the back door was opened. Leilani climbed in her Dodge Journey and drove to a trailer park where she threw something in a dumpster. The trailer park was about 2 miles from her house. Later, she claimed that she was throwing away spoiled food. Leilani returned to the house before 1:30 a.m. She opened various doors a few more times over the next hour or so. This was picked up by the security system. After this, she went to sleep. Based on cell phone activity and interviews, the police believed that Leilani's brother Paul and her boyfriend Daniel were asleep all night in the house. They did not know what Leilani was doing. They did not know about her mysterious adventure to the dumpster. Billie Jo was out of town at the time Quentin disappeared, so she was not a potential suspect. On October 5 at 5:20 a.m., Daniel sent a text message to a babysitter who watched Leilani's children, indicating that she did not have to watch the children that morning. At 6 a.m., Daniel left for work. He worked at a nearby facility where he loaded trailers. At 9:14 a.m., Leilani called Daniel while he was at work and said Quentin was not there. Daniel immediately left work. He literally ran out of the facility to his vehicle, leaving his jacket and cigarettes behind. He later said that his boss mailed him the jacket and cigarettes. According to the security system in the house on Buckhalter Road, the front door opened at 9:20 a.m. As I mentioned, Leilani called 911 at 9:39 a.m. The police developed a theory that Leilani murdered Quentin and placed his body in a dumpster at the trailer park. They believed that no one else was involved in this crime. On November 18, Quentin's remains were found in the Chatham County landfill. The remains were located in an area of the landfill where the contents of the dumpster from the trailer park had been dumped. Due to decomposition and being crushed by heavy machinery used in the landfill, it was not possible to determine Quentin's cause of death. On November 21, 2022, Leilani Simon was arrested and charged with 1 count of malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, 1 count of concealing the death of another, 1 count of making a false report, and 14 counts of making a false statement. On October 25, 2024, after a 10-day trial, Leilani was convicted of all 19 charges. At the time I'm making this video, a date for her sentencing has not yet been set by the court. She is facing up to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Leilani Simon maintains her innocence, although she has offered different stories about what happened. Her defense argued that there is no evidence that Leilani killed Quentin. The state, of course, disagrees. Although the evidence was circumstantial, they argue it was overwhelming. This brings me to the question, was Leilani guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Witnesses suggested that Leilani hated Quentin and did not treat him very well. For example, one teenager who occasionally babysat Leilani's children said that she witnessed Leilani push Quentin in a swimming pool when he was not wearing flotation devices. On another occasion, the teenager saw Leilani backhand Quentin across the face. Quentin disappeared under mysterious circumstances during a time when Leilani was the only adult near him who was awake. She left the house, visited a dumpster, and threw something away. Leilani initially claimed that she went to bed at 12 a.m. and woke up at 9 a.m. Later, she admitted that she left after midnight, but told another lie. She claimed that she went out to get a medication used to treat toothaches. Again, she had just had her wisdom teeth pulled out. Supposedly, her friend Misty had this medication and was going to meet her at a Chevron gas station. The friend's name was actually Melissa, and she went by the name Missy, not Misty. Melissa said that she never met Leilani that night. Eventually, Leilani claimed that she went out that night to pay a debt of $20 to a drug dealer. Upon discovering Quentin missing in the morning, Leilani called her boyfriend Daniel before opening the front door. If Leilani really believed someone had entered the house through the front door and taken Quentin, why didn't she immediately open the front door? Quentin's remains were found in a landfill. The location of his body was connected to the dumpster Leilani visited only hours before reporting him missing. Tests on his brain revealed there were no drugs in Quentin's system, which rules out the theory that he accidentally overdosed on drugs. One theory was that Leilani and Daniel had so many drugs sitting around that Quentin must have grabbed some of those drugs and overdosed. The back of Leilani's vehicle was covered in rice cereal, as if she thought this would disguise odor. Weeks after Quentin's disappearance, Leilani claimed that her boyfriend Daniel was the one who left the house, not her. This same day, in a secretly recorded conversation with Daniel, Leilani confirmed that she was the one who left the house. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. There are no witnesses to the murder, there is no video, no physical evidence tied Leilani to the crime. There was no obvious motive for Leilani to commit the murder. The state was unable to prove how Quentin died. Even though the autopsy ruled out an overdose, Quentin could have died from another medical condition or from an accident. The police reported that the room where Quentin stayed had an overwhelming odor of vomit. If his death was accidental, Leilani would not be guilty of murder, although she would still be guilty of crimes related to concealing evidence. According to the defense, initially, Daniel said that he saw Quentin alive at 3 a.m. and just after 5:30 a.m. This is not what Daniel testified to, but if it's true, then Leilani's mysterious trip to the dumpster did not involve disposing of Quentin's body. It's possible that someone did enter the house and take Quentin, an unidentified perpetrator could be responsible. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I think that Leilani was guilty of murder? Yes. I think the defense did a better job than would be expected given the evidence, but Leilani was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Leilani was self-centered, angry, impulsive, irresponsible, vulnerable, insecure, attention-seeking, sensation-seeking, addicted to substances, afraid of abandonment, suffered from mood instability, and had a sense of entitlement. she had a lot of difficulty in romantic relationships with men. At around the time of the murder, Leilani was having sex with her drug dealer behind Daniel's back. Leilani desperately wanted Daniel to be attracted to her sexually. She sent him a text message which read, quote, "I want to feel like my body is worth showing off and not like it's just been trashed from having 3 kids. I want to feel the way you made me feel in the beginning, like I'm treasured and safe, not like I'm just here because you really don't have a choice," unquote. In a video that Leilani sent to Daniel, she made it sound like she was the one who was desperate. She said, quote, "You did not want me, and I wanted you. I wanted you more than life itself," unquote. Everything in Leilani's life was based on gaining pleasure from drugs and from gaining satisfaction through romantic relationships. Her existence was a series of dramatic episodes, strong emotions, and impulsive decision-making. On the night of the murder, a number of unfortunate circumstances conspired. For example, Leilani had just had a fight with Daniel. She was in pain from having her wisdom teeth removed. She was using drugs, and she was looking for sex from her drug dealer, but did not obtain it that night. This failure to find sexual satisfaction focused Leilani's efforts back on Daniel. She needed to find some way to attract his attention. Leilani had never really cared for her son Quentin. She wished that she never had him. Her desperation to get close to Daniel and her hatred of Quentin led to a homicidal plan. Leilani murdered Quentin and threw his body in a dumpster. There wasn't much concern about getting caught. She had it in her mind that if the police did not find Quentin in 24 hours, their chances of finding him were very low. She was probably thinking of the statistics surrounding stranger abductions, but those are not applicable when the victim's mother is the killer. This false sense of security led Leilani to making several mistakes, like talking to the police. Leilani's low level of guilt about committing the murder was evident quickly after it occurred. For example, 2 weeks later, she and her mother were spotted drinking at a beach bar near Tybee Island. In my opinion, a fair sentence for Leilani would be life in prison without the possibility of parole. I think that sentence is used too much. I'm not a fan of it for many situations, including some murders. But in this case, it is warranted. Now moving to my final thoughts. There's this sense when looking at Quentin's living conditions that he never had a chance. His mother's emotional reactivity was not compatible with maintaining a safe environment for children. Leilani was so dangerous, she was bound to get someone killed. It was just a matter of who. A lot of people in the world want pleasure. Many people like taking drugs. Having sex is a popular goal. Finding a suitable romantic partner is a major desire. Simply being sensation-seeking is not necessarily the end of the world. Again, a lot of people want excitement. A lot of people want to feel pleasure. That's not always a bad thing. The problem is when the trait is combined with a lack of empathy. Some people are fine with gaining pleasure at the expense of others. Leilani was willing to kill her son in order for the possibility of gaining a momentary connection with an undesirable boyfriend. That is all Quentin's life was worth to her. Those are my thoughts on the case of Leilani Simon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. I always find it curious when people both seek drugs and romantic satisfaction. They don't necessarily seem completely compatible. Drugs give a temporary high. In theory, romantic satisfaction gives long-term peace, right? It's a long-term prospect. Drugs are temporary and quick. Romance, again, in theory, is something that pays dividends over the long run. So usually when people have this mindset of finding temporary pleasure, they're not really thinking about the long run. They're not thinking about a stable life. It's almost like they're living on the edge. They could expect to be dead at any moment. Drug use is a dangerous game. A lot of people aren't thinking about their retirement plan when they're using cocaine or when they're drinking excessive quantities of alcohol. It is definitely something that is expected to give a very intense and quick, pleasurable experience. After that, who knows what's going to happen? Usually people who use substances don't really think beyond that immediate experience. So again, combining that with romance just seems peculiar. Like people are thinking about some long-term romantic relationship. They're thinking 10 or 20 or 30 years down the road. I think in reality, a lot of the time, they're not really thinking about the long term. I think what really happens is they're treating romance as another drug. They're not really interested in stability. They're interested in having a relationship that is fruitful right now. So the drugs will give pleasure and they will fix pain, and the romance will give pleasure and fix pain. So really the romance becomes another substance. The relationship with substances is pretty easy to navigate. It's all just financial. Now, some people don't have the money for drugs, but if they can get the money, then it is pretty straightforward. You have the money, you go find a drug dealer, you buy the drugs. So really, it just becomes a matter of resources. That's really the main problem. If you can earn money, if you can borrow money, if people will give you money, then you can get drugs. Romance is more complicated. It requires some level of emotional depth and of empathy, right? So to be successful in romance, a person has to understand how other people feel. In this case, Leilani did not seem to understand how other people felt. She did not have empathy. So she kept failing at romance. There were probably some other reasons she failed at romance, like impulsivity and her anger and things like that, but I think that a lack of empathy could have been a part of it. So she could get substances, but she had trouble getting that romance area straightened out. So this left her in a position where there was imbalance. She really wanted everything. She wanted the drugs, she wanted the romance, she didn't want to be bothered with working too much. There were a lot of things that Leilani wanted, and she was willing to do anything to get them. And that's what I think created the great danger here. Nothing was sacred. Nothing was important to her except the small set of items that gave her pleasure. That was it. Everything else was expendable. Everything else was a resource that could be traded for something that she wanted.